note of. Go to the next slide. Okay. Um, know that this is council year of elections, as you might have already noted, most of you. The first phase of 2023 South African Farmers Council election is completed, and I hope you're all excited that you were able to nominate that person you want to see representing us or representing you in council. We have 161 nominees, and those nominees were chosen by you all. On the 14th of September 2023, on the Government Gazette, it was the list of these nominees was published. If you want to view, you can go to our website, see the link that is there, and you can navigate through it to see those 161 nominees. We are going to there are a few steps that you need to follow in deciding and voting for the nominees that you want. You are going to, there are two steps that you need to follow. The first one being for you to decide who you want to vote for. To view the individual nominees' profile, which includes the pharmacist's photographs and as well as their CV, you can visit our website at www.sapc.za.org, or you can click on that link there. Make sure that you familiarize yourself with the person you want to decide on who you would like to be represented by in council for the next 5 years. It is 5 years that they will be in office, so make the right choice. Remember, you can only vote for a maximum of 9 nominees from this list of 161 nominees. So the second step is for you to vote for the candidate. The voting will only occur online. So you will not receive any ballots or anything. You have to log on to your website and choose that candidate. And I would love you to note that the voting is going to be open from Friday at 6 a.m. sharp on the 13th October 2023, and it's going to close. That is cut-off date, the 16th October 2023. That is the Monday after at 6 a.m. sharp. You need to know that it's practically 4 days for you to do that, to choose that person. Hope you are all ready to make your voice heard, and good luck. You need to take note of the following things. Before we start our presentation for tonight. If you have questions to ask, if you have questions to ask, please go to the YouTube or Facebook on the comment section, put your question there, It will be read at the end of this session. And we believe that this session will last approximately 2 hours or less. Hopefully, you're going to enjoy this ride with us. It's important that you stay with us until the end so that you get the first-hand information about this. So at the end of the session, we will ask you to complete a survey of your attendance and rate this workshop. And we will make sure that this presentation is available on the website from the 29th of September, which is tomorrow. Thank you. The outline of the things that will be covered in this presentation. The first thing we have already done the opening and welcome. I'm going to explain to you what CPD is. We'll go through CPD compliance requirements, a touch of what are the essential things for you to have your CPDs ready and perfectly entered, how you can learn for you to acquire, to be able to enter a CPD entry. Some of the submission processes or the main submission processes that you need to follow. And there are some common errors that we usually see and challenges that we are going to highlight to you. And then I'll navigate you through the system for CPD. Next slide. What is CPD? It's important for us to understand the meaning of CPD. Simply define, it is the process which registered persons maintain and enhance their competencies through their professional career. It encompasses a range of activities, including continuing education and supplementary trainings. CPD enable registered persons to develop their area in the area of practice and demonstrate competencies. It is a requirement by legislature for us to do CPD activities or to do CPD entries. It is a requirement for one to practice. CPD compliance requirements. There are three things that are required for us to be able to safely say we have completed our CPDs. The first one needs to do an online annual declaration. This should be done by the 1st of February each year. So you can do it from the 1st, any date, but by the 1st of February, it should be complete. We should have all people declared. The recording of the second one will be to record the 6 CPD activities that you are doing throughout the year. This should not be done manually. It should be noted that we cannot receive an email of the CPD attendance certificates through email and regard it as a CPD entry. This should be recorded online on the platform of South African Pharmacy Council by the particular pharmacist. It is also required, lastly, of us to have an electronic portfolio of evidence. The evidence can be a workshop you have attended, the diploma you have attained, any form of training or ways in which you have acquired that knowledge for you to be able to do the CPD. This electronic evidence need not be uploaded. You are not to upload it. It's only by requirement by council where you will need to provide this particular evidence. The annual declaration we spoke about is made up of 3 components. One will need to choose the area, the employment area where you are working. You can either choose whether you are employed at an academic institution, whether it's a community pharmacy, distribution pharmacy, and many others, depending on the sector in which you belong. After selecting that, you will also need to select whether you are full-time, part-time, unemployed, or you are a retired pharmacist. Again, under employment, you will need to indicate whether you're working in the private, public, or both private and public sector. Thereafter, you will need to go to the domain competencies, wherein you will have to choose the activities that you are engaged in your day-to-day life at your workplace. This is what will determine your designation. After selecting all the areas where you practice, whether it's mostly or not, depending on what you are doing, you will have to go straight into the assessment criteria where you are entering your 6 CPDs that are required for the year. When you have completed the annual declaration, there will be a practicing status that will appear on your profile. The designation status will be either practicing or non-practicing, depending on what you will have selected. If on the domains, competencies, or activities that you are doing, you have selected nothing, then you have selected that you are doing none of the activities, your status will appear as non-practicing. But if your designation, if you are practicing in any of the scope of practice, be it one activity that you are doing, your designation status will appear as practicing. And in the event wherein you do not choose or you do not declare for this year, for the particular year, you will be auto-designated after the 1st of February to practicing. But if the previous year you had chosen that you are not practicing, and this particular year you choose not to declare, the previous year's designation status of non-practicing will be the one appearing on your status. Go to the next one. This is just the summary of what I was showing you in terms of employment, choosing the area of work, the competencies, and the assessment criteria. Thank you. Designation of a person is according to the regulations. Regulation 4 of the regulations relating to continuing professional development. A person may choose to be designated as either practicing or non-practicing, as we have already highlighted above. So if your status is saying practicing, it should be noted that for the current year, you are currently providing one or more of the services or performing one or more of the acts pertaining to the scope of practice. And if your status is non-practicing, it means for the current year, you are not providing one or more of the services or performing one or more of the acts pertaining to the scope of practice of pharmacy. How can one learn for them to be able to record a CPD? I'll start with the frequently asked questions. There are people in different sectors which get confused as to how should they learn or record their CPDs. One will say, I only develop regulations. Is there a need for me to do CPDs? Someone else will say, I am practicing, but I'm not working directly with patients. Therefore, is there a need for me to record CPDs? Others will say, I research drugs interaction or usage. Is there a need for me to learn in this sector and record a CPD? And people in the education fraternity will think, I only train pharmacists. Is there a need and how can I learn? It should be noted that pharmacy practice is not restricted to direct clinical care. Even when you are doing indirect clinical care, you are supposed to learn and record your CPD. Whether you are from research sector, you are educating people in relation to pharmacy, you are in the regulatory in relation to pharmacy and the development role, policy development role in relation to pharmacy, you need to note that you can be a practicing pharmacist, you can learn from that sector and develop and record a CPD. For your obligation, it will be to choose the right way and the right CPD, which will be relevant to the scope of practice. But however, it should be noted that even though the CPD that you choose to do may not necessarily be relevant to the scope of your practice, if you believe it will help you to develop you in the profession, you can still choose a different type of CPD to entry, from different sector to learn from and record. It is allowed. What will constitute a good CPD activity? Should be noted that the title that you choose to learn about, it should be appropriate and relevant to the domain that you are choosing. You should first of all identify the knowledge gap that you need to fill so that you can learn there. The method, you must also identify the method that you're going to use for you to be able to do the CPD. Will the method be something measurable or non-measurable? Is it going to be structured or unstructured method? And then lastly, you will need to summarize what you have learned and indicate and explain how it has improved your skills. The non-measurable methods that one can use are, for example, you can do a case study on the area you need to learn about. You can also choose to read a journal by doing a self-study or engaging by reading a textbook or any literature that can enhance your knowledge in the area that you are lacking, or you feel they should be more, you should learn more knowledge about. You can attend relevant conferences related, which will enhance your knowledge in a particular topic. The more measurable way of doing it will be by attending a short course, writing an article, those who are doing research, review of articles, and many other methods that are regarded as measurable, wherein you can have something to show. Then the last one is the structured methods that you can use, wherein you can either register for a diploma, a postgraduate diploma in something, and study even a degree which you think will enhance your knowledge in in your developmental stages in improving your career, in your career. The evidence that we're talking about needs to be current, meaning it should be for the relevant year we're in, valid. It need not be uploaded on the system. So have your portfolio of evidence saved somewhere in your information. Thank you. And this particular evidence, for it to be current, it should be for the current year that we are talking about. If it was done in 2022, then it should be under 2022. If it's something that happened, the learning happened in 2023, it should be recorded under 2023. The evidence can be in a form of a journal, a journal which you're going to save, a proof of certificate that you have attained in relation to that, any other form of evidence that you have used. It can be a training that you have conducted to your colleagues. The slides that you have presented, you can save that as your evidence. Right? There are processes for submission of CPD that we can follow. There are two processes to pick from when you are submitting a CPD. The first one, which is a 4-step cycle, it has no limits. You can submit all your 6 CPDs or 10 CPDs if you want to go beyond, or whatever number of CPDs that you want to submit, but the minimum being 6, using this step, because this step has no limitation on you entering your CPD entries. It has for you to have to complete this 4-step process, you must have, for you to make a submission, you must have completed all the 4 steps that are there. Then the second process that one can pick from is the 2-step cycle. On the 2-step cycle, it should be noted that it has limits, because when using this step, you can only submit 3 CPDs for a year using it. So you need to be aware of that you cannot submit the 4th one using this. You will have to go back for the 4th, 5th, and the other ones to the 4-step cycle. The 4-step cycle I was talking about, in summary, it's the one below. It starts with the reflection, followed by planning, then implementation, lastly, evaluation. The other step, the other process that I was talking about is the two-step, which is represented by this diagram, which starts from the third step of the first one, which is implementation, and lastly, evaluation. We'll just take and navigate you through the CPD platform. First of all, we need to familiarize ourselves with the competency standards that are there. And it should be noted that under the competency standards, we have domain competencies, and behavioral statements. Next one. This is the CPD platform. When we are on the South African Pharmacy Council website and we see the dashboard, we've logged in, we go to the CPD platform. The first thing that when you want to enter a CPD entry is to first select on reflection, which is the first step for the cycle when you are doing a 4-step cycle. But if you are doing a 2-step cycle, you will not start there. You will start on the one saying implementation. No, sorry, you'll go to, there is at the bottom, you can choose from there that you want to do a 2-cycle step. Then it will start from implementation phase. Next one. So on our first step, which is reflection, we will start by choosing a domain for which the CPD that we are doing is. We can see there on the second picture that under domain, you can use the arrow to select, to make a draw down and select the relevant domain where your CPD is, whether it's public health, whether it's organizational and management skills, or any of those 6 listed. After choosing our domain, we'll go to select the domain competency. We also have 6 from which we can choose. Whether our CPD is related to the health economy or medicine information, which will be under that specific domain. So each domain competency will be different from, the competencies for the different domains will be different. So you choose the one relevant to the particular CPD entry that you are doing. Then we do the reflection title, what the study is, what we are learning about. Then that part we have to type in using the words. Lastly, we do learning triggers. What triggered us to want to learn about this? Is it because we need to improve our competency? Is it because we received feedback from our colleagues saying there's a gap here? Is it because we had a client who was not happy, gave us feedback to say maybe we're not getting the best service in relation to that? Is that the reason why it was triggered? So there are many others. If it's not amongst that, there's also an option to choose others, which will be described. The minute you choose others, you will have to specify the other that you are choosing. We will do the learning relations under reflection again to choose whether this is for the current role or the new role or both. And lastly, we will select the learning initiation. Who initiated you to do the CPD? Was it your managers saying there's a gap here, go and research? Or was it you who saw that a gap? Was it your peers or the people you are providing services to, the users? Then when the last phase, when the first phase is complete, which is reflection, this pop-up message will come up to say a reflection. After saving it, it will ask you whether you want to continue to the next step. If you don't have time, you can save and come back to it another time, or immediately press yes to continue to the planning phase. Under the planning phase, you are going to choose the mode with which you are going to do the learning. Whether you are going to do is it a structured learning, a non-measurable methods, which we have discussed above, where I said the non-measurables will be going to learn having to read a textbook or read a journal and compile notes for yourself. The structured ones, I explained that you can attend a course which you might have evidence to say you have attended this and that a course, and so on. Then we choose the dates. Yes. The next step will be to choose the dates where you attended or you're going to attend these courses, whether it started on which day and it ended on which day. You need the next one will be the duration of the course. Did your course last for 30 minutes? Did it range between 3 hours to 6 hours? You will have on that arrow of duration of activity where you will have to choose. When did you manage to achieve? Yes. So after the planning phase, we go straight to implementation phase, wherein we are going to see, we should note that the learning title will already be there. There we need to select it. We are going to, this is the implementation phase. We will choose when it will be achieved and then describe what we have done to achieve this role at the bottom. I think we've got up to 1,000 words that can be typed in. When we're done with the implementation phase, we'll go to the last phase. So all the steps to move from one to another, there will be a message for us to choose to save and to choose whether we want to go to the next step. So this will be the last step wherein we are going to where is the evaluation stage. Here we are going to write what we have achieved by doing the CPD, whether it was, did we meet the objectives that we had. Sometimes it can be that you have done a CPD, but what you wanted to achieve is not achieved fully. There it will be highlighted. Whether how are we going to apply it in our workplace? Then another important step after evaluation is for us to select the year of submission. Sometimes you find that you need to submit for a previous year. So you will see it's highlighted on the second picture that CPD started in 2020. You can choose 2020 or the year you want to submit this CPD for. But if you do not choose, it will use the default year, which is the current year. This is how it will appear. We can see that little red at the bottom stating 2023 as the year it is submitting for. Then, yeah, thank you. Then one of the important steps that many of you miss is to save your work as you go along. And when you come here, please use the save button whenever you are done with a part or a section. Even when you are not yet done, save, you can always come back and make changes if it's not yet submitted. After everything is done, the 4 steps or the 2 steps that you would have done, depending on the cycle that you will have chosen, there is a red part which says submit for compliance. If you have not pressed that button, your submission is not, you have not made a submission. You need to press submit for compliance. Then you know safely that you have submitted your CPD. So in summary, for you to be able to see that you have submitted your CPDs for which year, how many, this is the screen. You go to your annual declaration. When you press on your annual declaration, these are the columns and the information that is going to appear. The first column is the year for which you submitted the CPD, followed by the when did you create your role, your status. Then we will come to entries. The entries, it will show that 2020 you submitted 6, 2021 7, 2022 6, and 2023 2. So for you to see for 2022 which ones you have submitted, you would click on the view entries where the red arrow is. Next. So when you have clicked the red arrow, this is what will appear. The 2 entries that you saw for 2023 will appear with the names, the domain you chose, the domain competencies, the titles, whether you have submitted it. If it's not yet submitted, there will be a different information and when the date you submitted your CPD. So that column I was talking about where I said it will show whether you have submitted or not. These are some of the messages that can appear. It can, if your CPD, you have not completed the steps. Maybe you've done the first step or you have done up to 3 steps, but you have not completed the 4 steps required. It will say CPD pending. It means on our side, it's not it's not a submission. The next one will say awaiting submission. If you have done all the 4 steps or the 2 steps that you were supposed to do, but you have not pressed submit button. So you need to press the submit button for it to be counted. The other one, which is the safe one, our green status, is submitted for compliance. So all the CPDs that are counted from the Pharmacy Council side, it's when it's submitted for compliance. So some of you might have felt or suffered because of this. Please take note of that. Submitted for compliance is when you have pressed the submit button. Then you will also see sometimes it will say archived. So the previous years, it will go to archives. It will be saved there. So it's also similar to our submitted for compliance, a safe status. It must be noted and highlighted that submission deadline is 31st December 2023. If you go to your page and you have zero submission, please make sure that you do that. We advise that every month, every 2 months, you submit a single entry, one entry, for you to be safe. But as we can see, we are in September now, and if you don't have any entries, you cannot use this method of one entry every 2 months because you are behind. You need to ensure that by the 1st of December, you have submitted the 2 CPD entries. There are common errors and challenges which people find when submitting their CPDs. One of the common system errors that people experience is that when it's close to cut-off time around December, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this. There's an increased volume of people trying to log onto the website. So everybody is trying to enter and submit their CPDs. So people usually find error messages, they cannot send, it doesn't record, and all those challenges. So it is advisable. Let us not wait for the last moment for us to submit, because we don't want to find ourselves caught in this situation wherein we cannot enter our CPD entries because of the volume that the system cannot take. There are also human errors that we have also noted, that some people, when they're entering their CPDs, they use the two-step processes, that as the process that I spoke about that has limits. They submit more than 3 CPDs. If you go and use it and submit more than 3 CPDs, the fourth one, it will not be counted. You will be able to enter the everything, but it will not be counted. So when you have reached your maximum limit, please go back to the non-limiting one, which is the 4 steps, to submit the remaining 3. The other challenge which people also experience is that when they are submitting a CPD with the same name, the entry of the second entry will not be counted. You might say, I have submitted 6 CPD. It shows you it's 6 CPDs, but because it was a duplicate, it was already in the system. The system is going to not count it as a submission. So please note all these errors. And a lot of people, or few people, let me not say a lot, few people have the consequences of non-compliance. I don't know whether it's because of their busy schedule or whatever, but I think sparing 6 hours few hours, not 6 hours, it's exaggeration, in the 365 days that you have to just do this will save you from suffering from these consequences. When you are not compliant by not submitting the 6 CPDs that you are supposed to submit in a year, council will designate you non-practicing. And when you are designated to non-practicing, you may not practice on the scope of practice of a pharmacist. For you to go back to practicing, it is a process where you need to be restored. You will need to fill in a form. You will need to pay in the amount which is required for you to do that. And you must also submit the outstanding CPDs. So you cannot just decide to change your designation and we still want you for that you did not meet, for us to be able to change you back to practicing. There are some pharmacists who may choose to be compliant, to be non-practicing, by themselves. They are not part of these people that we are talking about. Those ones you are in a safe space, you are allowed to choose to be non-practicing. So those are not the people we are talking about. So your designation will be voluntary. So it doesn't have consequences, except that you will need to reapply and be put back in the system. These ones, it's a consequence because there's monies that are involved. Yes, and it's a process. If it's not, you are not just a pharmacist, you have other roles like you are an RP or a tutor, particularly. Then you will be referred for disciplinary action. So we will not designate you as non-practicing because that is not it's going to affect a whole lot of people for us to change your designation. But you will be referred for disciplinary action. And there you will receive a letter from the legal department wherein you will be liable for a sanction imposed by DC, disciplinary committee. So it's not a nice process because there's monies involved that you will have to pay and all the things that goes with it. And lastly, to add to the consequences, the HOPS will be notified of non-compliance of you as a pharmacist. So you should know that. Okay. So there are a few highlights that I want to sum up for our presentations. We don't use the CPD points. There are pharmacists who send emails of their certificate of attendance and think it will be counted as a CPD. No, that is not the system which Pharmacy Council is using to register your CPDs. You need to go to the system and do it online. You cannot ask your friend or whoever to do the CPD for you, to enter the CPD for you. It must be done by yourself, not your mom, not your child. Learn to do it and do it yourself. So we need to encourage lifelong learning at all costs, in all situations we can learn. We do not assess the competency of the CPDs. It should be noted that it's different from the CPDs done for interns. These are not assessed. And the ones that are not practicing, they need not submit the CPDs. I think we have reached the end of our presentation. I think I should open this time for questions. I'll hand over to our communications department.
Thank you, Ms. Mangwana. Ms. Nukutula Misimango will read to you any questions that were posted. Thank you.
Thank you, Almarie. The first question from YouTube is, if I choose not to move to the next step, but save one step, how do I go back to retrieve the saved information?
I'm not sure. Almarie, you are not muted. You are muted. Can you unmute yourself? Unless we don't have questions.
Nukutila, please just repeat the message. Thank you.
Let's pause the.
Looks like we might be having a little challenge. Let me quickly find out.
The next question from YouTube is, have endless problems with the site bombing out when moving from one step to the next. Usually when I press save after the third step, I get a message that the page is not working.
Okay, I'm not sure if Tinyuko is hearing the questions, but I can attempt to answer. So with regard to the system, we've been having challenges with the system. Sometimes where the system bombs out, but we are currently engaged with the developer to assist us to stabilize the system so that we do not have such issues. But if you do experience such issues, please just send us an email on Pharmacist CPD.
I'm seeing some questions here. Is this a CPD Masterclass? See from Sia, yes, it is a Masterclass. Sorry, I've been speaking muted. I'm sorry for that.
The next question is, please show how to do the second step process.
Okay, I think we are losing Tinyuko. But in terms of this two steps process, if you log onto the secure site under your profile, you are able to select whether you want to complete the full cycle, which is the 4-step CPD cycle, or the 2-step CPD cycle. So I would need to log on. So maybe we can do that at a later stage once we've answered all the questions, and we'll demonstrate how to record the 2-step. Thank you.
The next question is, I have followed the entire designation change progress and paid and submitted certified information to change practicing, but my status remains non-practicing.
Right, so you need to indicate how long you've been or when did you apply, because we do have a turnaround time of 14 working days. But if the 14 working days is not met, you can escalate that query to us so that we can look at your application and process it for you to be changed back to practicing status. So I think we'll leave contact details at the end of this session so that you can just jot it down and send us an email, and we'll attend to your query. Thank you.
The next question is, did you say that the Hawks will be notified for non-compliance?
Thank you for the question. I think Tinyuko forgot to give the full explanation or of what the HOPS mean. HOPS is Heads of Pharmaceutical Services. So if you are in the state working for the government, you do have the Heads of Pharmaceutical Services in the different provinces. And if you're working for the groups, you do have someone who's assigned, to the pharmacy practice division, or who's responsible for ensuring that pharmacists are run in accordance to, good pharmacy practice. So those are the people that we're referring to. It's Heads of Pharmaceutical Services. Thank you.
The next question is, may you please get back to the reason for not allowing CPD points, especially when CPD is conducted by PSSA or SAPC?
In terms of that, it was a council decision. So because council thought people would be chasing points rather than having to chase or to having to address the gaps in knowledge that they might have. For example, you might attend a hypertension CPD evening where they talk about hypertension, just to accumulate points, and you find that you do not have a gap in terms of dealing with hypertension or addressing issues related to hypertension. So I think in terms of what the council thought at the time was that people would be chasing points rather than, CPD being a self-driven activity where a pharmacist or a registered persons identify their own learning need and decide how they want to meet that need. So yeah, that is the reason. Thank you.
Shani from YouTube asks, is there by any chance that the due date for the CPD due today is extended for some of us who are experiencing load shedding and the site is giving us problems?
All right, the deadline for submission of CPD entries for pharmacists is not today. It is the 31st of December. So you have ample time to submit all 6 CPD entries, which the deadline is 31st December. So there will not be any extension. Obviously, there's a grace period from the 1st of this January to the 30th of April. However, we do not recommend that pharmacists use the grace period because sometimes, life happens and, things happen and you find that you are unable to submit your entries during the grace period. And then that will lead you to, being designated as non-practicing ultimately or being referred for disciplinary action if you are an RP or a tutor. Thank you.
Another question from YouTube. Is there a good place for CPD activities?
Can you repeat that question?
Is there a good place for CPD activities?
Sure, that question is quite, I'm not sure what the person wanted to ask or the pharmacist. A good
Mr.
place.
Man, if I may come in.
Yeah.
It would appear the attendees asking whether there are recommended places where they can undergo CPD, but I think perhaps we need to then emphasize council's stance on learning, to say in terms of learning, we don't necessarily have to attend to courses only. There are various ways of learning, but I believe you can expand on that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the clarification. Yes, we do not recommend any place to do CPD because it's a self-driven process where you identify your own learning need, because we don't want you to be paying large amounts of money just to meet CPD requirements. So if you want to pay the money, it's your choice, but there are multiple ways to address the issue of CPD. You can read a journal, you can conduct training in the workplace or attend training in the workplace, you can attend a conference, and you can use that information to record a CPD activity. So there's no restriction in the type of activities that you can engage in order for you to record a CPD activity. So we don't want to recommend any course or anything that will cost you money to do it. So it's a simple process and we'd like it simplified in that way. Thank you.
The next question is, if I intend to go back to the pharmaceutical industry, production or QA, having left the industry for a few years, do I still need to go through the same process?
Yes, you have to complete an annual declaration and you can update your annual declaration anytime during the year. So let's say you change employment, you used to be in a community pharmacy, for example, and you move to manufacturing, you can update that information on the annual declaration and record the CPDs that are appropriate to the category of pharmacy that you're practicing in currently. Thank you.
Next question is, if I choose to voluntarily change to a non-practicing pharmacist as I'm working in a totally different sector, like a shoe retailer, then decide to come back to pharmacy halfway through the year, do I submit 3 CPDs or am I still required to submit 6, seeing that I will only be practicing as a pharmacist for 6 months?
You would be required to submit a prorated number of CPD activities. So because we recommend the submission of 1 CPD entry every 2 months, So if you voluntarily designated yourself as non-practicing and would like to come back anytime in the year, you have to count. For example, let's count January and February. You should have like submitted 1. So if you come in June, we only expect you to submit 3. If you come in August, we only expect you to submit 2, for example. So it's a prorated number of CPD and entries dependent on when you return or you change your designation to practicing again. If you voluntarily designated yourself as non-practicing.
What's the easiest way to assess your modules completed for 2023? The CPD dashboard isn't very useful as this reflects modules from previous years.
I'm not sure what the question means when you say assess modules that you completed, because remember with CPD, the recording system, you record what you've done, so you have evidence, you have documents. Maybe you have a certificate that you obtained for attending one of the CPD evenings and so forth. So you are just recording what you have done in terms of CPD requirements on the platform. So you still have your own records, but for us, we just need you to reflect and also to indicate what the learnings that you took from that CPD evening, for example, and how those learnings have benefited your practice as a pharmacist, how it has enhanced how you practice as a pharmacist. So yeah, it's just recording what you've already done. You have record of it, because you're supposed to keep an electronic portfolio of evidence for yourself as well, in case council requires the evidence in future. Thank you.
What happens if I've submitted more than 6 CPDs for the current year and I still have outstanding CPDs for the previous year or years?
All right. We talked about CPD being current for a particular year. So if you submitted more than 6 CPD for the current year and you submitted less than 6 for the previous year, it will remain that way. So we're not going to be moving CPD entries for the current year to the previous year. Otherwise, we'll be contravening our own stance or policy in terms of the currency of the evidence that we require for that particular CPD entry. So we recommend that you ensure that you submit a minimum of 6 CPD entry every year. We do not have a cap or a limit on the number you can submit for the year, but ensure that all the years we have a minimum of 6 CPD entries submitted. Thank you.
A question from YouTube. If I choose not to move to the next step and save the previous step, how do I retrieve the information?
All right, so the CPD activity will be saved. So when you go to your dashboard under my submission, you will be able to see the CPD activity. You click on it, it will take you to the last step that you saved. So then you can continue from there. So that's how you access the entry. So my submissions, and you're able to select that particular entry. It will take you to the last step that you saved. Thank you.
Started practicing in May 2023 from being non-practicing since CPD implementation. Seem to have missed the declaration in Feb 2023. How many CPDs should I upload for 2023 compliance?
All right, I think that one you can do the maths. You're supposed to submit 2 CPD entries one CPD entry every 2 months. So if it's between the month of January and February, it's supposed to be 1. Then March to April is supposed to be another 1. So it means you need to submit. We're going to subtract 2 CPD from the required 6. So you need to submit 4 for that current year. And you can update your annual declaration. As Tinyiko has mentioned, that if you do not submit an annual declaration, we will automate the system. We make the system designate you based on your previous designation or on your on your previous designation if you did not submit, and you can always come and update the annual declaration, but you would be required to submit 4 if you change your designation in May. Thank you.
I received a certificate in 2022 for my 2021 submissions, but did not receive a certificate in 2023 for my 2022 submissions. Is there a reason why?
Yes, there were a few challenges that we needed to address, but we are working on. We're currently doing quality assurance in order to release those certificates for 2022 CPD compliance. So in the next, I think around October, you should receive those certificates before the end of October for 2022. Thank you.
Can a reflection be short? An example for 2 sentences.
You must always, when you write or you complete your CPD, think of the reader as well, because at some stage these entries will be assessed or will be, assessed, as I say. So it must be easier for the other person reading what you've written there to make sense of it and to understand it clearly. So I'm not sure if 2 sentences would be enough, because you need to give us a background or how you came up with that learning need. What was the gap that you identified, and how is it going to benefit? How do you think it's going to benefit you in your practice and so forth? So I'm not sure if that can all be covered in 2 sentences. So think of the reader on the other side. That's the advice I can give. Thank you.
I voluntarily designated myself as non-practicing. Do I still pay the annual fees?
Yes, remember you are a pharmacist who's non-practicing. So to remain in the register of pharmacists, you need to pay an annual fee to remain in the register of pharmacists. So if you don't pay your annual fee, there are some consequences to that. You will be removed from the register of pharmacists, and depending on how long you are removed for, when you try to apply for restoration, and I'm sure some of you know how much the restoration fee it's a fee is. So it's a large amount of money. So you don't want to be paying that restoration fee. So remain in the register, designate yourself as non-practicing. That's fine. But if you are non-practicing for an extended period of time, there are certain requirements that you need to meet. For example, if you are non-practicing for more than 60 months, not non-practicing, if you are off the register for more than 60 months, so you have been removed for non-payment for more than 60 months, you have to then write the pre-registration exam that is written by interns to come back to the register. And there are also other requirements. You have to obtain you have to do some supervised practice under supervision of a pharmacist if you are removed for a certain number of months and so forth. So there are lots of things that you need to do in order to come back to the register or to be active in the register of pharmacists. So please continue to pay your annual fees, even if you are non-practicing. Thanks.
Is there a way of printing out proof of CPD submission from the SAPC website, as some facilities now require this information when applying for a pharmacist post?
Well, currently we don't have there's no way of printing the proof of submission of CPD entries, but you can utilize your certificate, your CPD compliance certificate, to apply. And you can also ask them to log into the system to check your designation status, whether you are practicing or non-practicing. So, and also you can request for proof of registration. It's a self-service. It's something that a pharmacist can log onto the secure site and print proof of registration with council. It will also indicate the designation, whether you are practicing or non-practicing, and you can use that. You can submit that to the prospective employer, if they have questions regarding your designation as a practicing pharmacist or not. Thank you.
How do we adjust the entries that are showing as pending so that we can see the title and not duplicate them?
All right, so if the entry is pending, it means you can still access that particular entry. So you can go to the steps that you have saved. And if you want to go to the reflection step, you are able to edit the title, right? So on the My Submission tab, it will give you the summary of your entry, including the titles. So you can see if there are any duplicate titles there. And if the both entries or all of your entries are pending, you are able to access those entries, select on them, and then go to the reflection step and then edit the title. So that would differentiate the titles of the different entries. Thank you.
Is there a way to catch up on previous year's CPDs as a once-off when there was a good reason for not submitting?
There is a way to catch up. However, if you do not comply or submit at least 6 CPD entries at the end of each CPD cycle, or at the end of the grace period of the cycle, then you'll either be designated as non-practicing or you'll be referred for disciplinary action. So if you are designated as non-practicing, you need to apply to have your designation changed back to practicing, and you need to submit the outstanding number of entries that you were deemed non-practicing because you failed to submit. So you can, as Tinyuko has indicated, under the evaluation step, you are able to select the previous year for which you want to submit the CPD entries for. Thank you.
For my 2022 submissions, the assessment status says not applicable and submission count says 0. Is that normal?
I'm not aware that we have such a status, not applicable. Please, if you can just send us an email so that we can investigate that, because the status that we have is those that were shared in this presentation. That's as far as we are aware of. Thank you.
What is the meaning of quality assurance once all 6 CPDs have been submitted for compliance?
All right. Quality assurance means that as the office, we have to check or to verify that indeed you have submitted all 6. And for those that did not submit, maybe all 6, we need to verify that, because it would be a painful experience for a pharmacist to receive a letter indicating that they didn't comply with CPD requirements when they did comply. So we need to ensure that our letters or communication that will go to the different categories of pharmacists based on their compliance or non-compliance status is appropriate for those particular pharmacists. Thank you.
I didn't submit sufficient CPDs or correctly, and this changed my status. I then requested change of designation and paid. Do I complete CPDs and hope that the designation changes? 5 CPDs submitted for 2022 remain unassessed, and 2 for 2023 are also unassessed. I inquired and followed up to ensure change of designation. The proof of payment and the certificates are not updated after submitting them via email to the SAPC and on my profile.
All right. I think that's one you'll have to take it up and just send us an email so that we can just check what's happening with your profile. Because you said you submitted an application, we need to check how far the application process in terms of processing the application is, and then we will revert back to you with a response.
I'm working as a locum for Dis-Chem, but I'm also registered as a deputy pharmacist for a wholesale distribution facility. Should I submit CPDs for a retail, or should I submit CPDs for my scope of practice as a wholesaler?
You can submit for both, but it's your choice. Remember, when you submit an annual declaration, it will indicate your primary your primary place of employment and your secondary place of employment. So if you indicate there that your primary is wholesale and secondary is it's a community pharmacy, you can decide whether you want to submit for both or one. So it's up to you. You can submit for both. Yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you. There are no further questions.
Thank you. I'm not sure if Tenyiko, if you can hear us.
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay.
I don't know. I missed some parts, but yes, I'm now here.
All right, we'll hand over back to you then. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And in closing, I would love to appreciate the team behind that has helped us to achieve this goal of having a training tonight. There's a lot of hard work that had to go up. Thank you to our communications team for making this possible for everyone. And also from the CPD units, everyone who was there to help with the questions and everything. We appreciate so much. And please, in the future, you are still welcome to attend more. If you need to get clarity, feel free to attend all the sessions that we will be having online. And if we cannot answer all your questions through this platform, feel free to contact us on the website. You can give us a call. That's our contact details there. You can either call, send an email, or whichever method is best for you. You can even use our official networks that we're using for social media. So you are free to go there and put a comment or question. We will attend to it. I hope this was helpful. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.